Now, you have been a part of teams at Twitter and Accenture. First of all, what types of teams were you part of or heading up there?
Yeah, so at Accenture, I was hired to build a practice called Responsible AI.
Hmm.
And this was back in 2017. I was living in San Francisco, and there wasn't really a lot of conversation about responsible
Yeah.
AI. But to me, it was very intriguing because, as you pointed out, I like this idea of data and people. And I'm like,
Hmm.
well, what does it even mean to build AI responsibly? Does that mean the rest of it's irresponsible? Like,
Right.
and I don't know. At that time, nobody really knew. So
Yeah.
I was actually one of the first people in the world who was given this privilege and opportunity to build a commercial practice. So the work I've
Hmm.
always done has been very practical and applied. I'm not particularly good at abstractions, as I've sort of pointed out.
Yeah.
And academic research is amazing and really helpful and directional, but I am really terrible at it. What I am good at is finding things and fixing problems and making
Yeah.
stuff, right?
And what were you
Um,
finding in these roles then,
yeah,
especially as it's
so
such a new
so
field?
Accenture was such an amazing opportunity. It's a pretty entrepreneurial place. I know that consulting firms tend to get a lot of
Yeah,
flack.
no one thinks from the outside that a
It's really
large
hard to
consulting and accounting firm
does
is an
anything
entrepreneurial place. Yeah.
or like do anything
Or that. I mean,
or
as a
that,
former consultant myself, we
you
make
know.
a lot of great slides, and that's like real work.
And AI may replace all of that.
Yes.
No more entry level consulting slides until 2 a.m. I don't
Right.
think anybody will miss that.
Nope, nope.
No, but there's Accenture's a really interesting place. One of my biggest champions was a CTO who just retired. His name is Paul Doherty, and he really understood the promise of what this means. So
Mm.
responsible AI to, let's say, a corporate perspective, what it can and it should mean is you're building products that work for everybody. And isn't that what every company wants?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, most companies aren't here to sell AI. They're here to sell a product, a tool, like a mattress they're making, a
Hmm.
widget, a car. And if that car, or that widget, or that mattress is not working for everybody, then you have failed at building a good product. And I think that is the message of responsible AI as it relates to like a corporate
Yeah.
perspective. So I spent some years kind of untangling what that meant. And
Okay.
what we did at Accenture was built the first enterprise bias detection and mitigation tool. And I'm very bad at naming things, so we called it the fairness tool. Yeah,
Pretty
it's a little
literal.
on the
Yeah.
nose,
Yeah.
but also at the time it was a very weird concept. Again, this is 2017, right?
Yeah.
People are like, AI is a technology. What do you mean fairness? Why are we building fairness into a technology? Why do we
Mm.
need fairness in a technology?
Hmm.
So it was a pretty bold move. Now, the field of responsible AI startups, and I had a startup after Accenture, is worth billions of
Yeah.
dollars, right? Because now we know it's worth something. At that time, it was a pretty novel thing.
So what did the fairness tool do?
It actually did, at that time, data inspection, and it did some inspection of your model decisions and how that decisions may lead to downstream biases or inequality.
Yeah.
So specifically, our data inspection tool would look at things like proxy variables. So one thing that was happening at that time, and we saw it manifest in lending, with
Mm.
banking, we saw it manifest in things like crime prediction, where you use a variable, but it's actually a representation of another variable. For example, in the United States, zip code is a good predictor of race.
Yeah. Because we live in
So
a segregated
exactly,
society.
because
Yeah.
we live in a segregated society. Now, banks are actually not allowed to collect data about race.
Right.
And inadvertently, this was actually not on purpose. So the thing
Okay.
about a lot of this stuff is actually not on purpose. Companies were like, hey, if we use zip code, we'll have a better predictive model. Well, what they were doing was discriminating based on race,
Mm.
because especially in places like Chicago, Boston, where there's a history of redlining,
Yeah.
a history of discrimination against Black people, any minorities and immigrants that were coming in, what they were doing was picking that up and reinforcing that.
Right. And they stopped doing it?
Most of them have tried to stop doing it.
Okay.
I will say most of my clients were actually banks
Yeah.
and healthcare systems, because
Wow.
those are so for two reasons. One is those are some of the most regulated industries in the world.
Yeah.
And number two is they already have an institutional reflex for thinking about fairness. Like
Mm.
fairness in banking is a concept.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to explain fairness to people in tech because they see their tools as agnostic.
Yeah.
They don't understand why fairness, or now it's referred to as wokeness, fits into technology. But actually in banking, it is a very normal thing to
Yeah.
talk about fairness.
Were there any other surprising things that developed in your early corporate AI practice, AI ethics practice?
Yeah, I think it was working through trade-offs.
Okay.
It's not easy to do this work. if you are committed to making change. One of the things about making change is you will never achieve this perfect vision of the change you want to see.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to be okay with making incremental steps. And you have to be proud of the incremental steps that you make. I think it is very easy to look at things when people build them and spend your time tearing them down. Why isn't it solving all the problems in the world? Why is your one fairness tool not curing all of racism in data sets? I am sorry, because we live in a society of...
You had one job,
I had one job.
End
I had
the racism
all of
with
it.
your tool.
One tool, all racism, go. Why couldn't you do just one simple thing? No, but it is easy to poke at these things and find flaws, and nothing is without a flaw.
Yeah.
But is it incrementally better than what we had? Absolutely. Are we pointing towards a better world? I think so. Are we making things that make people more aware of the fallacies in the technology, but also feel empowered to identify them and mitigate them? I think before then, we had people knew, and there were a lot of people talking about these issues, right? Dr. Sophia Noble, who was also a previous MacArthur.
Algorithms of oppression.
She noticed just by typing in a simple search term, Black girls are, noticing the kinds of terms that pop up versus typing white girls are. So we knew it, we saw it, but we couldn't do anything about it.
And so you are starting to be a part of a cohort of folks who are actually enabling us to do something about it.
That's right.
Well, thank you for your work.
We try.
There's a phrase that I first heard from you, moral outsourcing. Can you define what that is, especially in the context of AI?
Yeah, so I'm going to get a little philosophical
Let's
here.
Let's do it.
Harvard grad. I'm
with a philosophy degree.
There you go.
Don't
so
hold me
we're
to
gonna,
any standard. It was a long time ago.
No, you're going to remember your readings on Hannah Arendt, The Banality of Evil, right? So Hannah Arendt is a very fascinating figure in history. And one of my favorite eras of philosophy actually is this post-World War II world. Philosophers were kind of grappling with how can regular people, be so okay with seeing such terrible things happening in front of their eyes, right? So Hannah Arendt really tried to understand the depth of evil. And actually her takeaway was actually that most of it was quite banal. That most Nazis said things like, I'm just doing my job.
Right.
I'm just the truck driver. You're the truck driver of the gas that is going to be used to kill people.
Yeah.
And you know that. You're not just a truck driver. You're not just a chemist. And I'm certainly not calling engineers Nazis, but there is sometimes that same mentality. I think, to build a product, right, a sophisticated AI product or technology tool requires many, many people, right? There's many moving parts, all these people contributing to it. And then when the final product, or if the final product is somehow harmful or discriminatory, right, people say, well, I don't know. Like, I was just a programmer. I just wrote the code.
Yeah.
I don't know from society. I don't know from racism.
So no one's responsible.
No one, or at least, or even worse, the language we use about AI is anthropomorphizing. We humanize it. We give it a name. We sometimes even gender it. And in doing so, the moral outsourcing is people take the morality of the decision that they have made, the programs that they've built, and they say, well, AI is taking away jobs. AI is not taking away jobs, right? Corporate entities are utilizing AI to replace people at their jobs. That is the language we should use, not AI will replace teachers. AI is not doing anything that we don't tell it to do.
This reminds me, I came across during the COVID times, Yadan Israel, poet, writer. Now he works at one of the major publishing houses, and he was really focused on language as we create the world through the way we use language to describe the world.
Right.
And around the George Floyd moment, we got very clear and particular with him. George Floyd was killed.
Yep.
No. Officer so-and-so killed George Floyd.
That's right.
And so there's an active voice.
And a passive voice.
There's a protagonist in this. And when his argument was like, you're putting a lot of weight on George Floyd.
Yep.
What did he do to get himself killed?
That's right.
And so there's a parallel here where you're putting a lot of weight on AI, right? AI is doing, AI did, AI will, as opposed to people.
That's right.
Using AI are trying to achieve X, Y, or Z.
Right.
Who are those people? Why are they using it this way? Can we encourage them or prohibit them in one direction or the other from using it in this way or that?
That's right. And then the thing that happens as a result of that, you notice there is no human in that sentence.
Right.
And as a result, we are not part of the picture. We are not part of the story. And again, back to agency, there's nothing you can do about it. If you're a lawyer, AI is coming for your job. Right. This thing that is smarter than you, better than you, faster than you, doesn't need to sleep or eat, and doesn't have a family, is going to come for your job.
When you put it that way,
that is what it sounds like when you read these headlines.
Yeah,
that's what
AI
it sounds
is
like.
coming.
When nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah.
It does not magically fall from the sky. People build it. It is quite intentional. And if there's a human being behind the wheel, then that means human beings can do something about steering it in the right direction.
If you'd like to go deeper on how AI is reshaping our society, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon. We're dropping clips every week with all of our great conversations with guests, actually trying to make a positive future with AI. Thank you for watching.